Mr. Khoza, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, as per our previous conversation, you've been criticized for clickbaiting, cheap politicking. That's just some of the criticism that has been leveled against your proposal. Even the, SAPO has criticized your call. Just talk to us about what motivated this request from your end.
Yeah, greetings and greetings to your viewers at home. I want to firstly state how we came about making this proposal. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services complained that South African prisons are overcrowded by 44.43%. When we asked him what is it that needs to be done to alleviate overcrowding in prisons, he didn't seem to have an answer. Hence, we came up with this proposal that says, why don't we look at various categories of prisoners with a view of paroling them so that we can decongest the prisons. We came up with about 6 categories, but obviously people, for whatever reason, they latch into one. We are saying, firstly, you should look at, the 5 categories, if I may come to that quickly, is the first one that we think must be considered for parole. You have people who are sitting in prison because they cannot pay a bail of 200 rand, 300 rand. We are saying, one, what needs to happen is that all those prisoners awaiting trial clocking the system. If they cannot pay a bail of less than 1,000, they must be released so that they attend from outside. You have foreign nationals in our prisons. We are saying the minister must have a treaty or memorandum of understanding that these prisoners be taken back to their countries and finish their sentences there so that they do not clock our system. Then we come to the one of 60 and above. Hello?
Yeah, I want us to focus on the lifers one in particular, because that one has been the one that was criticized.
Yes. All right. The lifers, with the lifers, we are saying you have lifers, people who are 60 and above, who are chronic, serving life. We are saying once a person has served 10 years, right now, the law says he must serve 25 years before he's considered for parole. We are saying he's a lifer, he's chronic or terminally ill. If he has served 10 years over in his life sentence, refer him to parole board. We're not saying open the floodgates, let them walk out. We're saying refer them to the parole board. The parole board must consider their circumstances with a view of paroling them so that we can decongest the system. We asked the minister how many of them are there. He said 744 in all prisons in South Africa. We said start with those, consider them for parole, but send them to the parole board first.
All right. So some of the criticism, is, of course, around the concern about the possible impact that this will have on the country, particularly if you realize that, South Africa has high levels of crime. And then when you look at just the reoffenders, we are sitting at around 90%, assuming that that prisoner is really chronic. A 60-year-old being released on life is a danger to South Africans, don't you think?
No, it's not. People must read the stats. If you go to correctional services or even the police, people who are committing most of the crimes are young people between the age of 18 and 35. Those that are considered youth. Over and above that, it's rare that you'll have a person doing that. But a chronically ill 75-year-old, what possible damage can that person do? But people are hypocrites, because they would say when Jacob Zuma goes to prison, they say he's old, let him go. But when you say release people that are older, and then they say, how can you advocate for such? They won't necessarily be a threat. Okay, let me make an example. Anyone is a threat, including the police. You've just seen a video of police brutality here. A threat to society. So anyone, whether it's a parolee or anybody, if they commit a crime, they get arrested and they sent to jail. Each case must be looked at its own merit. It can't be a blanket approach.
And that's why we agree. I mean, age can't be, the basis for somebody to be granted parole, particularly if you consider just some of the crimes that some of these 750 people who are awaiting parole that are over 60 are in there for. Given the level of criticism against your proposal, including from the department itself, what are some of the possibilities that we could be looking at? Some of the areas, you were talking about 5 criteria. Shouldn't you be focusing there at least?
We must focus on all of them. This department rejecting this thing and saying they can't release hardened criminals is laughable. Why? Because they are supposed to be rehabilitating these people. So they are telling us that a person that has been in their custody for 20 years is still a hardened criminal. It's laughable. It's actually indictment on themselves that you keep a person for 15, 20 years in your system, you fail to rehabilitate them. When we say release them, they're 75 years old and they've been sitting in your prison for 17 years. You say, no, this is a hardened criminal. What have you been doing with this person for 17 years? You are useless as the department. It's laughable. Okay, but let me come to these other categories. Foreign nationals clogging our system. Why don't we come up with an arrangement that says foreign nationals must go serve their sentences in their own countries at their own government's expense so that we remove them from our system? Why is the government not trying an arrangement or a treaty of that sort so that we are not stuck with these people? And there's another category there that is very interesting in prison. You have South Africans, you have foreign nationals, you have the unspecified. Unspecified, there are a lot of people in prison that are unknown. They say they are unspecified. They won't talk whether they are South African, from which nationality, which country they come from. So they classify them as unspecified. What happens when you release this unspecified person? We are sitting with the aliens that we do not understand. The next category, we are calling for a situation where if a prisoner, any prisoner, for whatever, male, female, once they reach age 75 in prison, automatically they must be referred to the parole board to consider their situation at 75. We are saying age should be a consideration, but also the reason the parole is low, the department does not have effective rehabilitative programs. Because for you to get a parole, you must have undergone certain courses, you must have done certain rehabilitative programs. Those programs are not effective. They then delay the release of these people on parole. It's the department that is actually failing us. Lastly, which I think is very important, you must understand also that given the amount of corruption in South Africa, this thing of allowing overcrowding in prison is done deliberately. Other people should have been paroled. You know why they are doing that? They are keeping those people in prison. The more the prisoner, the larger the tender for food, for clothing, and for everything. So the bigger the tender for those things, the bigger the kickback for the kickbacks for corrupt politicians and greedy officials. Sometimes it's deliberate. You can't rule that out.